Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Friday, July 6th. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast, the official podcast of thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer, joined by Jason Cabrera. Jason, what's up, buddy?
Already July 6th?
It
Holy
is.
Crap.
Yeah, how about
We're moving along, man.
We are. We are now, about a month away from some early preseason type stuff. Training camp's only a couple weeks down the line. This is very much the dark ages in football because this is when the teams, the players, the personnel are all in their kind of summer break of sorts, and so there's not much going on. But this is when we get into the fun stuff, the rankings, and right before draft season. There's a lot of stuff that's coming down the pipeline. So I'm hoping to get everybody together. As has been asked about unbelievably a large amount of times. People want to know about auction. We're going to be talking about that probably all next week, and then we're moving into our rankings. So we did a couple months ago our early rankings. We're going to have updated rankings for you guys with the rookies, all the players, the news, the injuries, the suspensions, all that good stuff coming your way soon. So a lot of good stuff. So make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening. We are year-round, and we'll be getting to all that soon. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, which, of course, is iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, whatever you're listening right now on YouTube. If you're watching, hello. Wherever. We're all over the place. And make sure you guys subscribe to us on Twitter as well, at the FF Fanatics. That's 3 Fs, at the FF Fanatics. And that's your best way to get breaking news and interact with the show, ask us questions. It's a good time, guys. It's a good follow. And make sure you guys, if you want to have us keep being able to produce this show for you guys, free of charge, of course, head over to, if you can afford to do the latter, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics and help us keep these lights on, help us keep doing what we're doing. We greatly appreciate that. And I guess with that, well, for starters, Jason, how was the 4th for you, buddy?
4th was good, man. 4th was good. Like, the whole town goes out toward where the fireworks go off. We're watching from all over the place. Pretty awesome. About 40,000 people kind of just crammed into a small area. It's awesome till the end. That's what's awesome.
I was going to ask, is a big gathering for you're from like 100 people or like 1,000 people? Okay, 40,000. It's a little bit more.
Funny man. He's a funny man.
I do what I do. But yeah, for me, of course, without getting into too much detail, the 4th is a tough day for my family. So we do big gatherings. It's not necessarily a happy occasion, but of course happy for the birth of this country that we're in, that allows us to do this show and everything that we do. And yeah, our independence. And it was a good day. Enjoyed the fireworks, enjoyed the food, had some good family bonding. It was a good time. I hope everyone out there listening had a great 4th as well. If you celebrate it, we have a lot of international listeners, Canadian listeners. Obviously, don't celebrate the 4th of July, but it's just another day for you guys. But for us, it's kind of a big deal. So let's move on. Let's get to some of our top headlines from around the league. As you would suspect, not a lot of news going on right now with all the players kind of being into the wind, as it were. So we'll start with this one's kind of funny to me. In the quarterback news, former Miami Dolphins / longtime Chicago Bears quarterback Jay Cutler said that he is, quote, probably done with football, end quote.
So he's like, what, 2 years behind everyone else?
Oh, my gosh. I just don't know how he thinks he has a chance to come back to football, even if he wanted to. He could be a camp body, maybe in the right scenario, a backup, but unless there is a slew of injuries across the league, I don't see any chance he gets a starting job anywhere, even if he signs with a team as a backup to begin with. You
got to be real careful, though. There's some Cutler truthers out there, and they're violent. So.
They are. Look, he's got a cannon, but, I mean, you can't deny his productivity over the years. So,
yeah, or lack thereof.
Yeah, so Jay Cutler, maybe heading back to the broadcast booth. I guess we'll see how that works out in the years down the line. In running back news, this was helpful. So we just talked about how Aaron Jones was bulking up and getting all nice and big and ready for pass pro and all this other stuff. Well, Green Bay Packers running back Aaron Jones has now been suspended for the first 2 games of the season for violations of the NFL's policy and program for substances of abuse. So the substance abuse policy. So that had some clarity.
Yeah.
This will obviously sink Aaron Jones' value. It'll rise up Jamal Williams, and Jamal Williams will have a chance to win the job outright. I think this will also obviously make Ty Montgomery a more interesting proposition for the team and for fantasy, but though not necessarily fixing the quandary that is the Green Bay Packers running back committee, it adds a little bit of light, at least for the early days. If you can get your hands on maybe Jamal Williams and he breaks out, you might be able to trade him for something nice, or maybe he just wins the job outright and you got yourself a starter that you're still going to probably be able to get in relatively late rounds. So that's helpful news. It's not great news, but it's helpful news. And we'll go to the wide receiver position, where New England Patriots wide receiver Julian Edelman has had an appeal for his suspension, and it has been denied. So he will be suspended for 4 games. If you hadn't heard, this was for a violation of the league's performance-enhancing drug policy. So, Edelman trying to come back. Got popped, and now he's going to miss 4 games. So that's going to sink his fantasy value, of course. And with that, I guess let's get into why we're all here. We're just going to fly through the show today. We're going to talk about some contract year players. That's why we're all here. Now, when we talk about contract year players, we're not saying, hey, guys, this guy is on his contract year. You should draft him about 3 rounds higher than he's actually going, or move him up 20 spots in your rankings. Don't do that. In very rare cases, you could make an argument for moving them up a decent amount, but for the most part, we talk about this because this is, to us, a nice little tiebreaker scenario. If you have 2 guys that you've matched all the X's, the O's, the possibilities, the outcomes, the usages, the volumes, whatever the case may be, and you just can't figure out how to rank a guy ahead of another guy. If you're on the board and the clock is running and you just can't decide, this is something worth thinking about, because whether you believe in it or not, players on contract years, it's exactly that. They're playing for their career and their financial future. They tend to be a lot more motivated. Maybe they're putting forth more effort in the training room, showing up to practices. We're hearing a lot of that right now. Maybe they're going to try and play through an injury that they might have sat through in the past. All these little things to take into account. They're going to try harder in a contract year because they're playing for that next contract to keep their career alive and going. So, again, for a lot of these guys, we're not saying jump them up your draft boards, but it's something to possibly take into account. So with that being said, let's fly through this list. Let's start at the quarterback position. We'll go position by position as we tend to do. We'll start with Cleveland Browns quarterback Tyrod Taylor. He's on a 1-year deal with the Cleveland Browns. I just don't know that Tyrod has another starting job out there for him, but we do know for a fact, and we've heard up and down, the coaching staff has sworn to the fact that this is his team this year. So I think that he's got a great scenario, which is why it's moving him up boards. Do you think this motivates him to maybe throw the ball a little bit more, maybe run a little bit less, and maybe we'll get some better, consistent, higher-end fantasy production out of him? Maybe he breaks that 4,000-yard threshold?
Well, he's got himself some nice weapons, so that's nice. And they've got a team that is improving and trending in the right direction as far as talent goes, not necessarily as far as record goes. But I definitely believe that this is Tyrod Taylor's team. This is his job to keep or to lose. Unfortunately for him, he's in a bad situation because Baker Mayfield was a number 1 overall pick, and the Cleveland fan base is going to be watching Tyrod like a hawk. He throws 1 interception, and people are going to be freaking out and calling for Baker Mayfield. Now, this is the thing about Tyrod. He doesn't throw interceptions very often, so that's nice. He takes care of the ball, and he's got a team that seems to believe in him. This is an important year for him, not just because it's a contract year, but because he knows almost for a fact that he will not be in Cleveland next year. So he is playing for the next team that is going to bring him on board to try to give him a starting position.
No, absolutely. Let's see. He's making $16 million this year. Not a bad payday, but not a great one in the grand scheme of quarterbacks. So I agree. He's definitely playing for that role. I just don't know where it's going to be. But, no matter what, he's going to have to go out there and try and get himself an opportunity. I think that Tyrod is kind of a sneaky guy, which you can still get at an insane value. Guys, he's going as a mid-14th round pick. Now, I'm not saying that this news is something to jump him up into a top 12 quarterback, a guy you should be taking much earlier than this. But if you're in a 2-quarterback league or if you're streaming the position, this is a guy that I would feel very, very comfortable streaming. Because, again, the weapons he has around him, the best he's ever had in his career. He's got a decent defense. Tyrod, he could surprise a lot of people this year. So for a 14th round quarterback, I don't mind that at all. I think there's enough narrative surrounding him that makes him a viable option for adding and streaming and maybe even starting for you on a somewhat regular basis if you're going to roster 2 quarterbacks, which is why he's even being drafted, I would imagine, because I don't generally see a reason to draft more than 1 quarterback. So him being the 24th quarterback off the board, that's Interesting to me. But yeah, that's a side tangent. So with that, I guess let's move on to the next guy. The next guy has every reason in the world to play, and to play well, and to hopefully win a starting job so that he can play for a bigger contract down the line. But it's probably not going to happen. Teddy Bridgewater. So Teddy, poor Teddy, of course, he is in New York with the Jets. Now they've offloaded the I'm not going to say dead weight because that seems insensitive, but the extra 2 quarterbacks. So now it is simply him. It is Josh McCown, who's slated to start, and then, of course, first-round pick, 3rd overall draft pick, or, sorry, was it 3rd or 4th? Regardless, Sam Darnold. So do you see a world where Teddy gets starting snaps here? Josh McCown slated to start. He is rated as number 2, and I do think this team truly does want to sit Sam Darnold for a year. So, personally, I think it's possible, but I think training camp's going to be telling, and it's really hard to predict that early July like we're in right now. What do you think, Jason?
I think he does get starting snaps, and I'll tell you why. It's not because the Jets think he's going to be their quarterback of the future or even their quarterback of this year, but I feel that the Jets are going to try to use him as trade bait. Yeah. I think they're going to try to bring him out, have him throw the ball, have him show that he is healthy, that he is still Teddy Bridgewater, and have him play in some preseason games and show off a little bit, and then try to go out and get themselves some more assets, because this is a team that absolutely is in need of assets. And right now they're kind of quarterback rich. You know, they've got McCown, who, you know, is a decent starting quarterback for them to start in front of Darnold. They've got Darnold, who's going to be great in a year or two. And then they got Bridgewater, who's just kind of hanging out. So I think they're going to go out, they're going to get him some snaps, let him show off a little bit. And then, because they don't really, I mean, McCown already knows what he's doing out there. You know, he proved it last year. He's got better opportunities to do really well this year. So Teddy, I think, is going to be trade bait.
I mean, I definitely see a world where that happens. So you think that happens during the season or in the preseason?
I think they're going to try and they're going to let him play in the preseason. They may play him a little bit in the regular season if they don't get any offers. But there's a couple teams out there that might look Teddy's way if Teddy is healthy. One of those teams that shoots to mind is Tampa Bay, with the situation that they're in. If they bring in a Teddy Bridgewater, that could definitely gulf the gap that they've got before Jameis Winston comes back, and maybe an upgrade on Jameis Winston if Winston doesn't improve.
Yeah, and obviously off the field as well. It'd be nice to have. But, I mean, I think
definitely a locker room guy.
I think that, unfortunately for Teddy, I don't see a team making that investment because they're not going to want to see a spurt. They're going to want to see him survive a season. So I don't know.
You might be right.
I think that's what they're going to angle for. I think they're definitely going to try and trade him and try and get some value for him. But I don't think any team's going to want to run that risk and get themselves an injured quarterback. Go ahead.
Right. Let me ask you this: if you're Tampa Bay,
yep,
and all you had to do was give up a conditional pick, right? You say, all right, I'm going to give you guys a conditional pick. I'm going to pick this guy up, put him in my locker room, let him play for 4 games, you know? Because the worst thing that could possibly happen is Teddy doesn't play well for 4 games, and then Jameis Winston comes back, and you get your star quarterback back anyway, you know? And then all you gave up was a conditional pick.
Well,
I mean, would you pull the trigger?
I mean, I think that makes sense for any team to make a deal along those lines. I don't know if Tampa's going to be that team. Jameis Winston obviously suspended for a handful of games. Ryan Fitzpatrick in the house, who's been viable as a backup and a fill-in. Ryan Griffin there as well. They also got themselves Austin Allen, which I think is a camp body more than anything. But, I mean, they've got other guys. I think now Teddy could be better than all of them. I think he could easily, if healthy, compete with Jameis Winston for the starting job. I don't know if he wins it from Jameis, but I could see a world where it happens. But, I mean, like I said, off-the-field issues alone, they've got a lot to figure out with Jameis Winston, trying to see if they even want to keep him beyond this, being the face of the franchise with his off-the-field issues. So they've got to make a decision soon. Maybe after the season, maybe they do go out there and they make that trade if Teddy's healthy and looks good. And maybe Teddy could all of a sudden, I'm not going to say unexpected move because we're talking about it right now, but could come in and be the 2019 Week 1 starter for the Bucs, for instance, and maybe they just decide to part ways with Jameis. Who knows? But
it could happen.
It could happen. A former number 1 overall pick. It's not likely, but it could definitely happen if they're trying to save face as a franchise, especially with Jameis now facing the potential of being banned from the NFL if he keeps it up. So I mean, there's
Gotta have
a lot of
backup for that situation.
no, absolutely, and there's a lot of possibilities there and narratives behind it, which is why we're talking about this right now. Because obviously, as far as draft stock goes, Teddy Bridgewater is going undrafted, and why would he be drafted? He's a backup right now, but if he gets a starting job, it's a guy that could be an interesting guy that you pick up and you stream, and you could stream with confidence, I think, which is another reason that we're talking about this, because he's very motivated to kind of grab that job and succeed there. So this is not necessarily a conversation for your draft day. This is a conversation for the waiver wire and how much you might invest on trying to get the guy if the opportunity presented itself. Or who knows, maybe by draft season, this has actually happened, and he is in line to be a starter somewhere, and then you have all the reason in the world to confidently invest I would say a lower round pick because he's still an injury risk, but just saying, it's an interesting narrative. Let's go on to the running back position, where there's a lot of guys with a lot of interesting narratives and a lot of reason to believe in maybe giving these guys a little bit of a bump in your rankings. And we'll start with a guy who can't go any higher than he's already going, but he's worth mentioning, Le'Veon Bell. We've seen a lot of drafts where Le'Veon is generally the first or the second running back off the board, obviously playing on the franchise tag. He's due to make, about $15 million this year, I think 14.5, and he wants to get a lot more than that on a per-year basis. He's motivated. He's trying to set the market for running back, so I would say draft him with confidence with your number one overall pick if that's who you decide to go with. I don't know how much more we need to go into than a guy who's already going with a top overall pick. So anything you want to add, Jason?
No, you pretty much covered it. He's a top 3 running back in this league.
There you go. Next guy on this list falls under that same category, David Johnson, a guy who's criminally underpaid. However, I don't know if there's much to go into with David Johnson because based on everything we're hearing, he should have a new contract by the beginning of the year. So, anything you care to add, Jason?
I'll just say this. The man is going to be playing with a very large chip on his shoulder this year.
I would say so. I would say that's actually very accurate. But again, hard to pump up a guy who's already going as a top 5 pick in your draft. So it's all about your opportunity to even grab him in the first place anyway. So with that, let's go into a guy who you actually might be able to move up your list in an attempt to get. Now that is Philadelphia Eagles running back Jay Ajayi. Now, as CJ loves to point out, they are going to run this guy into the ground. And whether that's what you believe or not, it is his contract year, and he's playing for that next contract. He already got shipped out of Miami because of off-the-field concerns and issues. He finds himself in Philadelphia, wins a Super Bowl ring, so that's a nice accolade for him. And now he's going to have a starting opportunity on a good team with a good offense and a good defense. Going to be in good position more often than not. And a guy who's looking at a pretty healthy workload, who you can get in the mid-third round right now, who's on a contract year playing for that next big deal. Maybe you move him up a couple spots. I would probably take Jay Ajayi over the 2 guys that's going ahead of him right now. I don't know, Jason, who would you rather have? Jay Ajayi or Derrick Henry?
Ooh, man, that's a good question.
Without looking at your rankings, just gut.
I'm not gonna look at my rankings. Just because of the uncertain. I mean, like I said, I'm buying into Derrick Henry this year. I really, really like Derrick Henry, but Philadelphia is a better offense. I'm going to say Derrick Henry. I have to go Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, interesting. I just look at this team though. Corey Clement spells, Darren Sproles, situational spellings, Wendell Smallwood, Matt Jones, Josh Adams, Donnell Pumphrey. I don't think any of those guys are really competing. I think Jay Ajayi really is in line to have a really sizable workload on this offense. I would take him probably in the late second round. I'd be happy either way, honestly, with those 2 guys. Oh yeah, no.
The more I think about it.
The more you think about it. Yeah, I just agree. Now, obviously, injury is a concern, which is maybe why he's down so low. Maybe people feel like they got burned by him last year. But it's hard to deny the fact that he's got a great opportunity ahead of him, and he's got motivation. So with all that taken into account, I mean, I'm happy to take him where he's going, but I would probably move him up to the back of the second round, depending on who's out there my team needs. And I would feel pretty confident with that if all the chips fall the way that it looks like they're falling. So would you agree with that statement?
Jay Ajayi into the back of the second? No, I still think third for me.
Fair enough. To each their own. All right, moving on. But then again, you don't buy into the contract year stuff as much as some people do. So
That's true. I don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
A guy who definitely needs to make the most of every snap he gets this season, Mark Ingram. Oh, Mark Ingram.
Boy.
Mark Ingram, he's in a bad situation. He's suspended for a while. He's lost his starting job. They brought in other people, and he's been very, very good over his career with New Orleans, but for some reason the coaching staff does not like him. I think there'll be a market for him, but I think he's as motivated as it gets to go out there and make every single play count when he gets back from suspension. Mark Ingram, let's see, he's plummeting, as you would expect. He's currently going as the 10th pick in the 4th round. I would agree that that's probably still too early for a guy who's going to be suspended, but I would not feel bad about streaming this guy because I think the opportunity will obviously be there. What are your thoughts on Mark Ingram at this point, Jason, knowing what we know?
I think Mark Ingram is going to come out of his suspension house on fire. I think he's going to be very good. I think last year had a bigger impact on this team than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I think they saw what Mark Ingram could do for the team. The fact that Alvin Kamara matched up with Mark Ingram, they were the best rushing team in the NFL. I mean, it wasn't even close. So I think Mark Ingram's going to come out of the suspension. I think he's going to have a very good year from there on. And I do think the Saints are going to give him an opportunity to make up for those games he's going to miss.
Definitely the best 1-2 punch last season, that's for sure.
For sure.
The signing of Terrence West, the drafting of Boston Scott, none of that concerns you as potential snap lossage when he finally gets back?
No, I think that's just to cover their bases while he's away.
Yeah. I mean, we already saw a trend through the playoffs of Alvin Kamara getting to be a little bit more than a 50-50 split with Mark Ingram. He was definitely taking over that backfield. I think that's the way, and based on everything we've heard, that was the way they were planning on playing this whole season. Mark Ingram was going to be the backup. They're going to use Alvin Kamara as their 3-down back. Mark Ingram has short yardage and red zone, it seemed like, as opposed to where Mark Ingram was going to be your bell cow for 2nd down, Alvin Kamara, that situational back. So I think his value is already depressed, and because of the suspension, I think he's already going way too high. But I would not feel bad getting my hands on him and starting him because he will be incredibly motivated this year because he's playing for 2019. I think the writing's on the wall, and he knows that. He's not coming back to New Orleans. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Let's see. Next guy on the list is Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman, what are your thoughts on him this season, Jason?
I'm actually I'm with CJ on this most of the time. I'm not a big Tevin Coleman fan. I think he's a good running back. He's someone that pairs up well with Devontae Freeman. I don't believe in him that much. I think if there was no Devontae Freeman there, I don't think Tevin Coleman would be very good. I think he would be kind of a serviceable back, and that's about it. As far as him being in his contract here, I think he knows he's safe. He's not going anywhere.
I don't see him going anywhere.
No.
I mean, I think that they like him there. I think that they like having that backup, which I like him more than you and CJ do. Do I think he could be a true feature back in this league? Not really. But I think he could be a serviceable fill-in, or if Devonta Freeman went down, I think he could handle the load. He's going as the 31st running back off the board as the 9th pick in the 6th round. How does that sound to you?
9th pick in the which round?
In the 6th.
In the 6th round. Oh. I could be convinced to take him there, I guess. I would feel more comfortable taking him later, probably the 8th round, I think.
Wow, he'll never be there in that round. But
I know. I know he won't.
In the 6th round, honestly, I'm more than comfortable taking him there because we're looking for some mid-round upside, and some of the guys going around him, I just don't believe in as much.
Right.
I mean, he's in with a bunch of names that I think he's appropriately matched with, but I think he has a higher ceiling, and we've seen him perform better with that body of work in the past. Actually, this will be interesting. A guy going in the same range as him, who would you rather have here? Tevin Coleman or Carlos Hyde?
Oh, God. Neither. Geez. Talking pure talent, Carlos Hyde. But talking about durability, Tevin Coleman.
So, but would you take Hyde over Coleman, considering Hyde's in line to be a starter?
It would really depend on who I have in my on my roster already, but yeah, I would probably take Hyde over Coleman.
Okay, there you go. I was going to say, I know you don't have a lot of love for Hyde, but I think you have to go with a starter getting higher volume. But who knows?
Well,
Coleman gets a lot of work.
You don't have to go. This is the thing. You don't have to go with a starter over Hyde. And guys, don't ever just go with a starter just because they're a starter. If there's a starter, let's put it this way, Griffin, would you take Tyler Eifert or would you take anybody else in that same range?
Well, I mean, that's the tight end position. That's completely different.
Yeah. I'm talking about a starter.
You are, but we're talking also now we're taking into fact an element of injury. So guys going in his range, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves here because we're actually going to talk about Tyler Eifert. Spoiler alert: he's going as the 11th. No, it's okay. He's that's why I'm prepared for it. He's going as the 11th tight end off the board as the 10th pick in the 11th round. Guys going around him: Jordan Reed, also incredibly injury prone, but very productive when he's out there. So, would I want either one of those guys? Sure. I if healthy, I would start them in a heartbeat because when they're out there, they're unbelievably productive. But I'm not buying into any of these guys long term, and that's why I don't invest high draft capital in the tight end position. I don't draft tight ends till double digit rounds unless Gronk somehow slips to like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. I would.
5th round, you're dreaming.
I know I'm dreaming, but I'm just saying in a perfect world. That it's just not a position that produces enough fantasy points to justify the draft capital you have to invest to get him in those rounds. I mean, I would love to get my hands on Zach Ertz or Travis Kelce or Jimmy Graham or I don't know, Kyle Rudolph maybe this year, Evan Ingram, those guys. But they just go way too early for me. So I would much rather wait until the later rounds to get my hands on a Trey Burton. Or maybe just do what I normally do and stream the position. Maybe I grab one of these injured guys knowing they're going to be healthy to start the year, and then I add drop from there. So, yeah, but again, that's why the tight end to me is a different position.
Yeah.
If we're talking running backs, because we're talking committees, and we're getting a clear starter or a backup with a role in an offense, if it comes down to a tiebreaker, I'm going with the starter just because the floor is higher. Now, the ceiling might not be as high because the player might not be as good, might be an injury risk down the line. It might be on a worse offense, but the volume gets me a safer floor. And if I'm looking in the middle rounds for depth, I want the floor play. I don't want to have to fill in a player and know that there's a huge bust potential. But that's again, we're going down a whole. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, we'll go down the. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole here, but I would just to round off the argument. I would argue that Tevin Coleman would have a higher floor because Carlos Hyde is more prone to be injured than he is to finish the season.
Right,
That's all I'm saying.
Right, but you can't predict injury, and I know that and a lot of fantasy shows out
go
there.
By trends.
Well, his trend is that he played all of 2017. He played all 16 games. No, before that's fine, but his most recent body of work shows that he was healthy. So, I mean, that throws a wrench into the argument. Now, I agree that I think he's injury prone, and I expect him to probably be nicked up through the year and banged up and probably not make it through the whole season. But, I mean, you can't change the fact that he is a clear starter as of now on a team that's going to be pretty decent on offense, we think. We think they could be actually legit contenders for a 500 season, maybe even beyond. Right. And, I mean, volume. That's the key. That's the key at a position like running back is volume. I mean, obviously, if you're talented, you could break some big plays, but you need to have the opportunity to have those big plays to happen in the first place. So, again, we're going down the rabbit hole here. That's not what we meant to do. So, I guess we'll revert back and keep going. Let's move on to wow. Let's go on to Green Bay Packers running back Ty Montgomery. I think he's incredibly motivated to show something this season because as of right now, I don't think anyone knows what to think of this guy. He's a wide receiver who converted to running back. They drafted 2 running backs, both of which were better than him last year, and now he's just kind of in this limbo of is he a wide receiver, is he a running back, is he going to be a gadget player, which is kind of how I lean. I think he's going to line up in both positions, and He's got to do something because this is his contract year. He's going as the 11th pick in the 9th round. And, I mean, just because I don't know how the team's going to use him. I don't know what his floor is going to be. It honestly, even with this being a contract year for him, that's a scary value for me because Ty Montgomery could be a guy who doesn't really produce anything or he could be a guy who returns on mid-round value. I don't see him being a a guy that is worth much higher than he's going. Do you think anything along those lines? Do you think he's worth 9th round or higher?
But there's just too much. There's too much of a question mark when we're talking about this guy. I mean, we don't even know if he's going to play running back this year. He's probably not. I mean, like I said, I think Jamal Williams is gonna sew up that position, especially now. So I don't know. I'm not sold on Ty Montgomery. There's a lot of really good wide receivers in this offense, a really, really good tight end in this offense now. I think he's going to be the odd man out. I think he's going to end up being just a gadget player, like you said. So, no, I think I'm going to steer clear of this guy.
Yeah, I think that if there's injuries to your team and he's sitting out there and the opportunity's right in the week, or maybe if, maybe some freak thing happens and he's going to be the starter because both Jones and Williams are down, I would start him with some confidence there because volume, opportunity, drive, sure. But as far as draft capital, I'm not investing any higher than that on him. 9th round. I just don't know what I'm going to get from him week in and week out. Like, he's, for me, therefore, a double-digit late-round sleeper. To take him in single-digit rounds is kind of crazy. I probably wouldn't even take him there, if I'm honest. Let's see. Next guy on the list, LeGarrette. No, sorry. Well, yeah, whatever. These aren't in any order. LeGarrette Blount. So, Detroit Lions running back. Now, he has a nice trend of whatever team he plays for wins the Super Bowl. So that's pretty cool. But beyond that, he's in a contract year because he signed a 1-year deal with the Lions, and he is in a position where we're not really sure what his role is, much less his workload. So, Jason, what are your thoughts here? Because there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding LeGarrette Blount right now, but obviously motivated to keep doing what he does and go out there and score touchdowns, be a wrecking ball, and punch through into the secondary where you see these defensive backs just kind of bouncing off of him. What do you think?
There's a lot of uncertainty in the entire Detroit Lions organization as far as the running game goes. I mean, we don't really know what it's going to look like yet. I mean, Amir Abdullah's still on their roster as far as I know. But we don't know if he's going to be there. We all on this show pretty much figure he's not going to be there the rest of this year. Kerryon Johnson's there that just drafted. There's a lot of really good ideas going on in Detroit. The question and they upgraded their offensive line a bit. So now the question is going to be what's this running attack going to look like? I really do like LeGarrette Blount. I mean, the guy has just been perennially really good. And especially around the goal line, right? He just loves to punch the ball into the end zone. We saw what he could do as a primary back, gaining tons and tons of yards. So I like him. It's just I don't like the situation he's in. Like the players, don't like the team right now. The way that they're constructed. Until I know a little bit more, I'm kind of steer clear of him unless he's late rounds.
Yeah, I mean, go back to 2016. He can handle a workload. Almost 299 Absolutely. Rushing attempts. Averaged about 4 yards a carry, 1,161 yards, 18 touchdowns. Huh. Yeah. Then he walks and he goes to the Eagles, where he plays 173 snaps. He got 766 yards and only 2 touchdowns. So that's not nearly the same player. Now he goes to Detroit, where it's a team that wants to run the ball, but they're not really tooled towards doing that yet. They're clearly making a shift towards trying to add that to their repertoire, but they also went out and they drafted in the 2nd round Kerryon Johnson, who I think is an Amir Abdullah clone. I think he's a really good 3-down back. He can do it all, and I think because of that, and that's why we're saying Amir Abdullah, we don't really know his status with the team. I expect him to be there. I think that the cap casualty, or not the cap casualty, but probably the training camp body that gets cut is either Zach Zenner or Dwayne Washington. I expect them to probably carry 4 running backs. I think it's going to be probably Kerryon Johnson as the starter when it's all said and done. LeGarrette Blount will be the backup. I think Theo Riddick's going to come in as a change of pace running, pass-catching back, maybe 2 running back sets, who knows. And Amir Abdullah is going to be that Swiss Army knife guy that they can bring in, fill in all the spots as needed, just because he's failed to seize the opportunity in years past. Now they've upgraded the offensive line a little bit, but LeGarrette Blount as a backup, doing what he does as a specialist, it's hard because that's with my expectation. He could be going out there week 1 and be the starter, which in that case, you're getting a heck of a steal on him because obviously he's motivated to play. I mean, you can't deny that. He's 31 years old, so he's definitely up there. He'll be 32 by the end of the year. But Jason, what do you think? He's going as the 12th pick in the 8th round. How do you feel about that value for Blount?
In the 12th round?
In the 8th round. 12th pick in the 8th
round. Well, 12th, I'm sorry, excuse me. 12th pick in the 8th round.
40th running back off the board.
Man, it's so uncertain about how this is going to look, and new face, new place, new team. I would say, depending on who's on my team, depending on what needs I have, I would not feel horrible about pulling the trigger on Blount in the 8th round. I'd feel much better about it in the double-digit rounds.
Yeah, Kerryon Johnson going about a round and a half earlier. He's going in the early 7th round. Actually, about 2 rounds. He's going as the 2nd pick in the 7th. So, yeah, I could buy into that there, because if this is a committee, if this is a 1-2 punch, if this is simply this offense moving the way that we know that it's geared and tooled to do, he could be in great scoring position. He could be a boom-bust player for you, but if you're talking about mid-round value, he could be one of those sleeper guys in a good matchup you plug into your flex spot, and he could give you a week-winning performance. Plus, driven. It's a contract year. He doesn't want to hang up the cleats yet. I would buy into him in the 8th round, because players going around him are players like Chris Thompson. I would take LeGarrette Blount over Chris Thompson. Darius Geis, I think, is going to stranglehold that offense, and Chris Thompson will be used sparingly because he's just that type of back. Deonta Foreman, I don't think he's going to be back from injury quite right. Ty Montgomery, Corey Clement, Doug Martin. I would take LeGarrette Blount over all these guys. So I would pull the trigger on him there, if I'm honest. So, yeah, that's okay with me, and I think he has the upside in the drive to over-deliver on that draft stock. So I definitely like that. And then the guy that we skipped over, we have to pick up the pace a little bit here, Frank Gore, Miami Dolphins running back. Guys, it's Frank Gore. He's going to run until he dies on the field, like some sort of gladiator with some honor. I think he's driven. He signed a 1-year deal with the Dolphins. We just don't know how it's going to shake out in Miami. Kenyon Drake's there. We're all huge fans of Kenyon Drake. We all wanted to see him have the workload. Doesn't look like it's happening. But it looks like a lot of people out there are sleeping on Frank Gore because we just don't have any clarity right now. Frank Gore is going as a 14th round pick, so I think he's a guy that if he's there, he's definitely worth snatching because he could be the starter. That's the crazy thing. This ancient running back with 1 million miles under him, he could be the starter week 1. And you're talking about getting him with your last round pick, because generally after that you're seeing, obviously, kickers' defenses off the board, or flip-flop it and see if he's still there later. But I would absolutely take Frank Gore in the 14th round because the upside is just immense and, of course, driven to keep going. What are your thoughts, Jason?
Oh, I would be ecstatic to take Frank Gore in the 14th round. I think that is an absolutely awesome move because, like you said, you're not expecting much out of a 14th round pick, but you might get the workhorse 3-down starter and somebody who can get you 1,000 yards, can get you lots of touchdowns. So yeah, absolutely, I'll take that all day.
He has not had a season where he's had less than 250 rushing attempts since 2010.
Yeah.
Ha. And he was injured that season.
Solid work, folks.
Yeah. So he was injured that year. And then he's played 16 games every single season since then. He's been out there. He's perennially gets you around 1,000 yards. He's generally good for somewhere in the ballpark of 6 touchdowns as of late. And again, if he gets a good workload in Miami, I don't see why he can't return on that value, which is running back 2 value easily. And you're talking about 14th round with motivation. Yeah, he's 35. I mean, he's really, really old for a running back. He's got 1,400 yards under his belt. He's got, 3,226 rushing attempts under his belt. That's an astronomical amount. But when it's all said and done, this guy gets it done, and he's got the body type and the work ethic to do it. And in the 14th round, with him playing for the next contract, yeah, all day. I'll draft Frank Gore there. I advise you all to do the same. Unless you're in a league with us, then don't. couple honorable mentions we threw up here. Amir Abdullah, who we already talked about. It looks like he's on his way out, but maybe a guy worth monitoring. And Marshawn Lynch, contract year for him, but we're expecting him to hang the cleats up after this season. He came back because he wanted to play for the Oakland Raiders. Obviously, this is the last year that the Raiders are in Oakland, so we expect him to probably call it a career after this season. So let's move on to the wide receiver position, and we'll try and fire through these a little bit quicker. Odell Beckham Jr. Now, of course, we're hearing all this stuff about how he wants to, kind of like Le'Veon Bell wants to at running back. Odell Beckham Jr. wants to set the market for wide receivers. Not surprising. He's been phenomenal through his young career. Off the field issues, injury last season, these things are going to... They're going to throw a wrinkle into the potential of him getting that, but, I mean, the body of work and the highlight reel that is his playing career, it speaks for itself. So, what are your thoughts on Odell Beckham Jr. this season, Jason? And, I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time on him because, obviously, he's already going ridiculously early. He's going as the first pick in the second round. But, I mean, is that valuable to you as a top 3 wide receiver?
Yeah. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. is a top 3 wide receiver. He's already proven that. He's already pretty much thinks like he is the best receiver in football, regardless of whether you agree with that or not. That's good for a receiver to believe that about themselves.
They've got to.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And they're going to be in a much better situation this year because people are going to have to load the box to stop that ridiculous
they
speed
have
on.
a running game. They can run the ball.
Holy cow. Absolutely. So Odell Beckham Jr. is going to get an opportunity to be very, very good this year. Yeah, I would still, yeah, it doesn't really change my drafting strategy when it comes to Odell Beckham Jr. I'm still going to take him high, and you should take him high too. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, I would just say take him with confidence. He's driven. Yeah. He's worth the value he's going at. Next guy on the list, a little bit more interesting. Brandon Cooks, playing for his 3rd team in 3 years. He's going as a mid-4th round pick. I could definitely see a world where he's playing for a contract. He's playing for I would say it's hard to say a better offense than the Patriots, but I think an offense that's going to be more creative in using him very effectively. I could see a world where he's worth more than where he's going right now, but you could also very easily make the boom bust argument for him. So I think because of all that surrounding the fact it's a contract year, I would comfortably take him where he's going as the 8th pick in the 4th. What are your thoughts on Brandon Cooks?
It feels high to me. 4th round feels a little high to me. There's some running backs excuse me. I'm doing what you normally do. There's some wide receivers going after him that I would probably take before him. And the main reason for that is because he's on a team that has just so many mouths to feed. A lot of talent, and that's great. And he hasn't formed any rapport whatsoever with the quarterback just yet. So, 4th round seems a little bit high to me.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to personal preference. I know I was a big basher of Brandon Cooks last year, and there was a lot of analytical reasons behind that. And we even said, disclaimer, if people get hurt around him, he will be very good. People got hurt around him, he had a good season. I could make that same argument, but I think Sean McVay is going to be creative. I mean, Sean McVay was trying to get him last year, and now they got him this year. I think he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve for how he wants to use Brandon Cooks, and I just think that a mid to late 4th round pick, I could easily get on board with Brandon Cooks being my number 2 wide receiver. So, yeah, I'll pay that all day with the upside, the drive, the situation. He needs to go out there and get a big boy contract. I'm personally very okay with that value. And the fact that it's a contract year for him solidifies that for me. Stephon Diggs, Minnesota Vikings wide receiver. Thoughts on that?
Stephon Diggs. He had a great postseason. Did very, very well. He looked the part of what everybody wanted him to be, and that's great. They got themselves a new quarterback. I like him. I like him a lot. I think that he's going to be very good this year. 4th round is where he's going right now. I would be comfortable taking him in the 4th round.
Yeah, I agree. My only holdup here.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no. My only holdup here is simply the change at the quarterback. Now we all really, really like Kirk Cousins. Obviously, there's no shock in all there. But he's going to a new team where he's learning a new system. I mean, you can easily make the argument of the new face in the new place. And it's viable, especially at the team's most important position, the guy who's getting the ball every single play, unless they go some sort of crazy wildcat formation. So I think that he's got the drive, obviously. I think that the fourth round is fine. I think that's fine value. This is going to be a very, very good team with the Minnesota Vikings. Adam Thielen, to me, obviously is the uncontested guy that I would want. This is one of those situations where I don't think I play when the first one goes, get the next guy, because I really like Adam Thielen. I have for years. And I continue to like him this year. Kirk Cousins loved to feature his tight ends, so I think that Kyle Rudolph has a great opportunity to really come back and have a great season this year. Obviously, Dalvin Cook is back, so there's a lot of mouths to feed with Stephon Diggs, so I find it hard to invest higher capital in him than where he's going right now as the second pick in the fourth round. But I think that if he can stay healthy as well, because health has been a problem with Stephon Diggs, if he can stay healthy in the situation he's in, on the offense he's on, with the quarterback that he's got now, provided it all clicks, with his drive to go out there and get himself a big boy contract after the season, I would take him with confidence there. I would take that as a serious tiebreaker, especially when I'm looking at Stephon Diggs or Juju Smith-Schuster. You know, these are guys going around him. Stephon Diggs. Oh, this is interesting. Stephon Diggs.
Thielen's going before him. I was just commenting. Thielen is actually going around before him.
Oh no, yeah, he definitely is. Thielen is going higher. But what are your thoughts on Stephon Diggs or Allen Robinson? Same round.
Allen Robinson. Interesting.
Allen
Robinson. It's not even close for me. I like Stephon Diggs, trust me, but Allen Robinson's an alpha dog. He's going to be a very, very, very good wide receiver in Chicago if he can sync up with Mitchell Trubisky. All the situations are the same. New quarterback, but Allen Robinson, I feel, is a better receiver.
But Minnesota's the better team with a more proven offense. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. And then these are guys going in the same ballpark. Stephon Diggs or Juju Smith-Schuster.
Oof. Diggs, because Juju Smith-Schuster is not the first. He's not going to be the first choice to throw to.
Stephon Diggs or T.Y. Hilton.
That completely depends on Andrew Luck at the moment. Diggs.
Okay. These are all guys going in the same ballpark, so it's interesting because I, for the most part, agree with everything you've said. So yeah, let's move on. Where were we? Okay, let's pick up the pace. Randall Cobb, going for his third and probably final contract. I already think that he is a great value, provided he can stay healthy. Obviously, that's kind of a big deal. But Randall Cobb he's moving up draft boards already as the 8th pick in the 8th round. I think the fact that this is a contract year would give me confidence in drafting him there, but it wouldn't drive up his draft value for me. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers has supported multiple number 1/number 2 borderline wide receivers in a single season for numbers of years. And I think that could happen again this year if Randall Cobb can stay healthy, but you have to take into account Jimmy Graham's there. He's going to catch a lot of touchdowns. Randall Cobb he's not old. He's only 27, but I would comfortably take him higher than this, but I wouldn't want to, if that makes any sense. I think that if I can get him at his asking price, I'll happily take him, knowing that he's driven in a contract year. And that's the only reason, because otherwise, if you look at his workload over the last couple of years, obviously he had that magical year a couple of years ago. Last couple of years, not so much. So the opportunity, the contract year, all that stuff, I would get him in the 8th round. I don't know how much higher I would go. Let's see. Tyrell Williams, arguably the 4th wide receiver in Los Angeles with the Chargers. I think that he is in a great opportunity to go out there and really make a splash. Obviously, with the lack of tight end weapons, I think the wide receivers are going to be out there in probably 4 wide sets, maybe 3 wide sets with a wide receiver lining up a tight end in the slot. I mean, there's a lot of ways I think they're going to be creative. I think he's going to see the field a lot more than he's not, and he is one of their bigger red zone weapons. I could see a world where he, plus it being a contract year, he really goes out there and shocks a lot of people, and he puts up a really good year, because we've seen the flashes, and I could really see him put it all together and have a surprisingly good year this year. What are your thoughts on Tyrell Williams?
Where's he going?
I actually forgot to write that down. Let me look it up real fast.
because that's good for him. It's going to be contingent completely on where he's going.
I believe
he's going around him.
I believe he's going undrafted right now, if I'm honest.
Oh, then absolutely, yeah, I'll take him undrafted. Shoot. But let me put it this way: would I take him in late double-digit rounds? Yeah, I probably would. I mean, he's on a really good offense, and like you said, he's you're looking for upside when you're looking in those last 3-4 rounds. You're looking for a really good upside. Absolutely, this guy's got upside for days, and if someone gets hurt, you've got yourself a really, really good pick.
Yeah, he's going undrafted right now. I would pick him up as a late round guy all day. I would happily pick him up. So there's a sleeper for you guys. Let's see. Rashard Matthews. He's been the top receiver the last couple years in Tennessee. What are your thoughts on him?
Oh gosh, do I have to have thoughts on Rashard Matthews? I really like him.
Some. He's going as a 56 wide receiver as a 13th round pick. People have seemingly all forgotten about him.
Yeah, and it's understandable why. And it's not all his fault though. You know, I like him a lot. I was expecting more from him last year and did not get it. But it's really going to be contingent on how his quarterback plays this year. Would I take him on a flyer in the 13th round? Sure.
I mean, I absolutely would. I mean, we're talking about a guy, and like you said, injury. He had a letdown of a season last year. Injuries were a concern. He got injured. He was dealing with Marcus Mariota, who didn't have a great season either, for obvious reasons. It just was not the best year for the Titans overall. Now, let's not forget, this year they bring in Matt LaFleur as their offensive coordinator, coming from Sean McVay. Really, really good offensive mind. He's also spent time with Kyle Shanahan. I think he could really, really be a interesting cog to add to this machine that is the Tennessee Titans offense. He could add a lot of interesting wrinkles. They've got the weapons. Obviously, Deion Lewis, Derrick Henry at the running game. Marcus Mariota needs to take that next step this year. I think that Rashard Matthews is still the number one there. We think Corey Davis is going to probably have a bigger role this year. Tajay Sharp, a guy that we've seen in flashes that we really like. Taywan Taylor is there as well. But I think this is really going to be Rashard Matthews and Corey Davis running around out there. And Delaney Walker is going to be that old man kind of jogging down the middle of the field, and I could see Rashard Matthews returning to his form where he's around 1,000-yard receiver and closer to double-digit touchdowns from 2 years ago. Now, over his career, that has not been him, but I could see that being him this season. Opportunity, workload, offensive coordinator. It's really kind of a perfect storm that tells me that Rashard Matthews plus drive to go out there and get a big contract. I really like Rashard Matthews, especially at the value he's going for this year. He's a guy I'm definitely sniping in the late rounds as a sleeper pick. Let's see how we're doing on time. Wow, we're almost done. Let's do one more rapid fire the tight ends and get out of here. Is there one that jumps out to you want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, actually, the next one on the list is an interesting one, Quincy Enunwa.
We can talk about him. Let's talk about Quincy. Quincy Enunwa, New York Jets. He has an opportunity to be potentially the number one wide receiver. Over his career, it's really looked like he's been kind of that 1A receiver. He can flash like a number one, but he needs another number one type guy on the other side of the field from him to distract defenses. He struggles against certain coverages, whatever the case may be. Well, Robbie Anderson is kind of the same thing, which is what makes this a very interesting scenario, because Robbie Anderson and Quincy Enunwa healthy at the same time, not suspended at the same time, at least as it looks right now, and they're both, to me, kind of that number 2/1A type receiver. I think that feeding off each other with the wrinkle of Terrell Pryor, if Terrell Pryor can get back to his 2016 form, this could be a really kind of sneaky good wide receiver core with the aforementioned Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, three-headed quarterback situation, and just way too many running backs. They've got 6 running backs under contract right now. That's not going to be the way it is at the beginning of the year. The offensive line needs some help, so I think they're going to be airing this ball out rapidly. Quincy Enunwa has the drive to go out there and put up a really good year, and I think he has the talent to do so with good quarterback play. So man, he really did flash when Brandon Marshall was healthy, too. Brandon Marshall's last year with the Jets. So I'll ask you, Jason, what are your thoughts on Quincy Enunwa? Because he is kind of polarizing to a lot of people.
Yeah. Part of it is he was on a bad team, and didn't have a lot going for it talent-wise, which is one of the reasons that he could possibly be the number one option in this offense this year. Here's the deal. As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's not being drafted right now.
No, he's undrafted currently, which is very interesting.
Yeah, so
sneaky steal. There's so much good talent that you can pick up after drafts are even over this year. It's crazy.
Absolutely, and to me, I would absolutely take him in the bottom of the draft. I think that he has the upside to really finish as a good number 2 wide receiver in this offense, depending on who the quarterback ends up being. So, yeah, I think that's a sneaky good pick right there.
Yep. Other guys on this list we're going to talk about, but we're skipping past the aforementioned Terrell Pryor, Mike Wallace with the Eagles, Kelvin Benjamin with Buffalo, Dante Moncrief with Jacksonville, and some honorable mentions. Larry Fitzgerald, it's his contract year, but we're expecting him to probably hang them up after the season, but interesting name worth mentioning. And then 2 first-round rookies from the same draft class that have not materialized. Kevin White with Chicago and Brashad Perryman with Baltimore. They have every reason in the world. Contract year, possibly their last years in the league. They first round picks that have just
pick it up.
Dropped the ball literally all over the field. They could be guys that you invest no capital in at all. Maybe if you see a flash, you pick up off your waiver wire because maybe they put it all together. They were drafted that high for a reason, guys. It just hasn't materialized. And let's rapid fire these tight ends. We already mentioned Tyler Eifert, injury risk, but contract year. Yeah, it's hard for me to talk about value on quarterbacks and tight ends because of my draft strategy. I know you're not a big fan because he's an injury risk, but it's interesting because it's a contract year, so he's got every reason to try and push through those injuries, go out there and make big plays. So I'm streaming him if I have him, but what are your thoughts really fast, Jason?
I don't call him an injury risk. I call him an injury certainty. He's pretty much.
You kind
injury.
of have to. I always say you can't predict injuries, but there's certain people, like you said, you expect it. And he has missed more games in his professional career than he's played, which is insane.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
He's one of those exceptions.
I would take him as I would take him as my second tight end. He's very, very good when he's healthy, but he's rarely healthy.
Agreed.
So I would take him as my second tight end, or I would take him with someone who was a handcuff. That's it. I wouldn't take him otherwise.
Fair enough. What about a long-time kind of mid-range, middle to lower-end number 1 tight end in Delanie Walker?
I really like Delanie Walker. I think that he's kind of the opposite of Tyler Eifert. He's got a capped ceiling, but at the same time, the guy is always available. He plays well when he plays. He doesn't get the love that he deserves, but I think he's a solid tight end, and that's really what you're looking for with this position. You're looking for somebody who's solid, consistent, and shows up for games.
He's consistently somewhere around 65 receptions. He's consistently around 800 yards, and he's pretty consistently around 4 touchdowns. That's what he does.
Right.
He obviously had a phenomenal year in 2015 where he had 94 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns. 7 touchdowns the following year with all the rest were average. But last year, a big crash back to reality, back to his averages. Now, like we were talking about before, he's in a contract year, which is exciting. He has probably the best offensive coordinator he's ever worked with, which is exciting. I've bashed this guy openly in the past. He's 33. He'll be 34 at the beginning of the year, which is ancient. We're getting to Antonio Gates level of just old man wandering down the field. But again, it's hard for me with these tight ends because of my draft philosophy. But what about for you, Jason? Mid-7th round for Delanie Walker with all the scenario surrounding him. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think that's still just way too high.
Yeah, it's too high. I'm starting to draft tight ends later than I usually have in the past.
Hey, welcome.
7th round. You calm down. I'm not insane like you. 7th round is a bit too rich for my blood.
Fair enough. Jesse James. Let's wrap this up quick. Jesse James, Pittsburgh Steelers. We're already hearing how he might not be getting the starting job. He's currently going undrafted, which is interesting, but a guy to definitely keep an eye on, I think, because he's been decent in years past, but I think they realize that he's not the long-term answer. He's not a replacement there. And then Max Williams for Baltimore, tight end that the Ravens moved up to grab in the past. An unbelievable college career. Very flashy, really good one-handed catches, but he has not translated to the pro level as of yet. Injuries have been a problem. Again, another guy to maybe watch. I mean, they did just draft 2 tight ends this year, but
he's in a crowd now.
He's in a very crowded committee, so it's very diluted, but a guy that's worth monitoring. So with that, I guess let's get out of here. That was a lot of information today, guys. I hope that it was helpful to you. These are some guys that are more than anything, why a lot of these guys are worth your consideration. Because a good number of these guys, in fact, are guys that I think people dismiss. They hear the name, they're like, nah, don't want that guy. But we just gave you a lot of reasons to maybe take another look. So I guess with that, do you have any parting thoughts, Jason? We'll be back on Tuesday, by the way, and fingers crossed, if everything works out the way I'm hoping, we're going to have our auction extravaganza special. I love that. One of my favorite shows of the offseason. So
does that mean we're going to have a hitman sighting? Is that what you're telling me?
I heard that we might. He better be here. If not, he's being left behind. We're doing auction. I'm putting my foot down right now. We're talking auction on Tuesday. Be here.
I like it.
It's one of those must-be-at shows during the offseason. I know it doesn't get a huge download rate every year, and that's because people are scared off of auction. People don't play it. But we're going to talk to you guys about why you should be playing it. So be here on Tuesday. So, again, any parting thoughts, Jason?
No, I think that's it, guys. Thanks for coming.
Yep, and remember, make sure you guys follow the show on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. Get your questions in. We'll get them answered to you guys. Draft season is fast approaching, and you can follow us individually. I'm at G Palmer FFF. CJ is at CJ Hickman 89. Jason's at Jason Cabrera 13. We'll be back on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, guys. Take care. Bye.